everyone, this is Persephone. I'm sorry for my kind of undead look. I'm kind of sick in the moment, and my dog is right next to me, so if you hear some snoring, it's the dog that has fallen asleep. I decided to make this video after a lot of thought. I made it once, and then my cat pressed one of the buttons and it was gone. So here we are again for round 2. And this is probably my most extreme video that I've ever made, and I'm going to get to the point without further introduction. The point is that during my life I felt that I'm not a human being and I don't exist 3 times. The first time was the 10 years that I lived with my mother from 7 to 17. The second time where I had 2 dozen abusive jobs, but I'm going to say that 2 or 3 years in my last job that caused me to also have a mental breakdown and develop several autoimmune illnesses and led me to say I'm going to make money online. And the third time is now. So for the last month, I have to say that I've been in an extreme depression to the point of not exactly being suicidal, but I've never been this bad in like 15 years. So something had to change. And because I think that if I'm going through something, maybe other people are also going through the same, or they can get help from me sharing it, I'm going to share it with you raw, extreme, and everything I'm going to say is true. So if you want to shame me, go ahead. If you want to blame me, go ahead. If you want to make your cartoon character account and leave nasty comments, go ahead. I know that on the internet, everyone and their dog has an opinion. For the people who don't know what happened, because I shared some of these stories a long time ago, I'm going to briefly talk about the previous 2 times before we go to the present. I grew up in a family of narcissists, and by far the most extreme narcissist was my mother. She was a teen mom. She handed me over to my grandma, her mom, and she went back to school and then to college because she didn't want to bother with parenthood. That was it, 20 days. That was probably the best thing she had done for me, because my grandmother was an awesome parent, and with the things that I know now about psychiatry and how you raise children, you need to have one stable caretaker. So they don't have to necessarily be your biological parent, or they don't even have to be female. So for 7 years I lived fairly well with her. I have the best memories of my life with her. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2013. When I was 7 though, my mother decided that she wants to play family and be with my dad and all of that stuff, so she came to get me. Looking back as an adult, I think now that was because people were judging her, because even now you know that there are the double standards of a mother being a deadbeat is much more harshly judged than a father being a deadbeat, although I think that if you're going to be a deadbeat, better learn about contraception or become child-free. And after that, for 10 years, I was a slave. By slave, I mean my father was deployed. He also comes from a military family, so there was this kind of military tradition that people who have children compete on military contests in math, in science, and stuff like that, and there were monetary awards. The first award was around 300, 400, 500 euros, depending on the difficulty of the contest, the number of the subjects. I'm not going to bore you with this, but there were monetary awards. My mother found out that I was autistic when I was 1 year old because I showed extreme symptoms, so they had me diagnosed, and she was convinced that I must be a retarded failure and a freak. Those were her words. I don't use these words for anyone, but I'm just trying to give you like a feeling of what it was like. When she found out that autistic people, some of them, have an affinity for sciences, technology, and so on, she realized that she has a cash cow, that there are money to be made. So when my father was deployed for months at a time, she would sign me up for those contests. Some of the times we lived in a military base as well. And she would say to me, "You'd better win this contest or I'm going to kill you." She would say this before the contest, after the contest, and so on. And I started participating, and I started winning because I was good in those subjects. I don't say this to brag, I say this to explain why things escalated, because I think if she was losing, she would just beat me a few times and then get over it. She sold the story to my father that it's good for me because I meet other kids, and you know the whole trope that autistic kids have bad socialization skills and we're supposed to be these loners and these horrible people. So She also said she opened a bank account and all the money that I was earning from these contests and all that stuff that was featured on the news sometimes went for my future. If you saw €1, $1, or 1 cent from that money, I saw it too. I never got a dime. I don't know what she did with it. If I'm going to take a wild guess, I would say alcohol or Xanax or junk food. Eventually, because this kind of thing is like gambling and it escalates, the money from the smaller contests were not enough. So she wanted to get into the bigger contests that were for bigger kids. And that meant I had to study things in advance. Like, for example, when you're a 4th grader, you cannot participate in a contest in math for 6th graders because you don't know the curriculum, you know? So she would say, you know, we have nothing to do. You are a child, you're going to study from morning till night, and you're going to bring the money, and if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you. And after some point, because I think I have been passively suicidal ever since I was, I don't know, 9 or 10, she realized that this threat doesn't work for a kid anymore. It got old, so she had to implement other types of punishments. I'm sharing this, and I'm going to get to the point. I think I'm going to make this video long. I don't care if anyone is watching it. If anyone harasses me, I'm just going to send this, and they can think whatever they want of me. I don't care. I'm past the point of caring. The one and fastest side effect of all of this abuse is that other kids in the military base and kids in the other families started hating me because their also toxic parents would compare them to me, and they would say, why is this kid winning and you don't? And there was also a lot of sexism that girls are not supposed to be as good in math as boys, so why is a girl winning over you? And became ostracized fastest than you can imagine from the other kids. But my mother didn't care because the goal was not for me to make friends anyway. The goal was for her to make money and spend it behind my father's back. The studying became from 6 hours to 8 to 10 fairly fast. And then she would start trying punishments like withholding food or cooking horrible stuff. She had several eating disorders that went undiagnosed for years and years. And she could go through trends. Imagine this type of woman that obsessively follows celebrities and is neurotypical and wants to do whatever celebrities are doing. So there was some point that her favorite celebrities became vegan, so she decided to make us also vegan. And we would have to eat practically roots and rice because she couldn't bother to cook actual, nutritious, healthy vegan food. I remember one incident that was probably the worst, that she had some problem with me. I don't even know what it was. Looking back, I think she was a narcissist, a borderline, and possibly psychotic. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I see symptoms from at least 3 or 4 disorders, like comorbid disorders. And she locked me up in a room for 8 consecutive days in the dark. Yes, I had to study in the dark somehow, without letting me shower, barely letting me eat, and she would come in and out of the room to mock me. And the best thing is that I continued winning despite all that, and I won over kids 2 and 3 and 4 years older than me, and the more I would win, the more she would hate me. Because this is the amazing paradox with narcissists. You have to be successful enough for people to look at you and praise her as a mother, but you can't be too successful to trigger her insecurity. In my father's family, there are several people who are considered geniuses. They had an IQ of over 150 confirmed, and a lot of them got schizophrenia, and we had several male relatives who actually committed suicide in horrible ways. So you can say I come from a mental illness dynasty. She would point out at these people and she would say, you think you're smart, huh? You think you're smart like your father. You're going to end up just like your schizo uncle in the Looney Bin. Just wait. You shouldn't get ahead of yourself. Even now, getting compliments makes me extremely uncomfortable because every time I would get a compliment from any well-meaning normal person, she would go home and she would say, that person who said it, they don't really know you. You're just a freak. No one will ever love you. No one will ever want to be your friend. If they knew who you are, oh my God, they would go no contact immediately. So you're going to get schizophrenia anyway. Your future is in the mental hospital anyway. So why bother making friends? Why postpone the inevitable? You're a psycho. Eventually things progress to high school. I'm going to skip junior high, the bullying, the ostracizing, the contests, and oh my God, you need to get awards. My father has a wall in his house that is from top to bottom awards, and he doesn't want to accept how these awards were obtained. Because of all of this malnutrition, I was around 5 feet tall and 90 pounds. Even now I'm 5'3" as an adult. So imagine the looks of people when some 5 feet tall, tired looking person would go into the cottage with their manager slash mom slash psycho who is smoking and drinking things that most of the times he would drink those diet teas that they were actually laxatives, and the kid would come, wouldn't talk to anyone, just try it, leave, and then be called to get an award. So in high school, I started to have problems because I was severely underweight. I had also started to develop anorexia from the stress, and also because there was constant shaming for my weight and there was nothing to eat. I've never been overweight, but again, go figure with narcissists. If there isn't drama, they have to invent some. If there isn't a problem, they have to invent some. Professional misery, that's how it goes, like suffering Olympics. And my menstruation stopped. And then she started all of these rumors that I was pregnant, which is, honestly, if I was pregnant, it would be in the news because I wasn't meeting anyone besides going to the school to meet the few other kids that were in the same class as me. And unless you can get pregnant in the 10-minute school break, somehow without anyone knowing, there's no way. But at this point, most people weren't talking to me anyway, much less being interested to have sex with me, but it didn't matter to her. And then the whole medical abuse by proxy started. She would convince the entire family that I'm pregnant and I must be a drug addict. Another very mysterious thing is how you're going to buy drugs when you don't have any money, because most of the time she would send me to school with zero money and zero lunch. I would have to walk. Like, there wasn't even money to take the bus. I'm serious. My father didn't know any of that. By that point, he was severely ill. He was also suicidal, in and out of hospitals and on morphine because he has autoimmune illness and chronic pain. So I think he was a rather neglectful parent, but he was also trying for his life. So at this point, I had kind of forgiven my father for that part of my life because I knew that there were people trying to save him from committing suicide in the hospital, so there was a limitation. But she had no excuse because there was nothing wrong with her apart from her narcissism. Then she would take me to several obstetricians, and they would actually threaten me and try to coerce me to admit that I'm pregnant. And there was specifically a doctor, imagine I was like 13 or 14. There was a doctor who was telling me that if I'm pregnant and I lie to him and he gives me birth control to restart my period, I'm going to die. And all lies and bullshit. I don't even know where she was finding those quacks. And then performing all of these humiliating medical exams that were unnecessary because I was not pregnant. Not even one of these quack criminal doctors said, excuse me, why is this person 20 pounds less than what her weight should be based on her height and her age? Maybe that stopped everything? Because, you know, if you're a skeleton, your body is not going to waste resources for you to menstruate. They're going to keep you alive. Eventually, I developed extreme depression. I developed anxiety. My grades started to slip. So my father activated at this point because my father is also all about appearances and being the best and being the smartest and following the tradition of the family who were the only people from their town to get advanced college degrees and all of this trope. So I started going to psychiatrists again. The first time was years and years in therapy before for autism, but now it was because there was something wrong with me. Apparently, when you have no free time, no friends, barely any food, no human rights, and you develop depression, there is something wrong with you. Why don't you just accept your life with a smile? Come on. My mother was telling me, what else do you have to do? I mean, your job is to study. Come on. I went to several psychiatrists, which they were complete garbage. I have a plan that passes through my mind from time to time that I would file reports against these people, but most of them either retired or changed jobs, and I don't know if I'm going to go through with it. The thing is, no one really asked me about how my situation was at home, and they just prescribed the medication that the pharmaceutical companies told them to because they want to profit. There was no lifestyle change, there was no talking about narcissism, about abuse, there was nothing. Just make the person zombie with meds. The reason for that is because I realized that society doesn't care if you are happy or if you are healthy. Society cares if you are functioning. So as long as you bring home the grades and the money, everyone is happy. Except you, but Again, you don't matter, you're a minor, your parents control everything. I started taking the pills because I was feeling so horrible that I was thinking, hey, why not give it a shot? And everyone was promoting the pills. It was anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and I don't know, some serotonin balancing crap that supposedly fix you. And the more I took them, the worse I started to feel, and I didn't know why. I felt that my cognitive functions were slipping away, that my mind was like so slow, I couldn't process anything anymore. And every time I was telling my mother, let's call the doctor, let's check out, maybe I need to switch medication or something, everyone would gaslight me and say, it takes time for the antidepressants to start working. Just give it time. Just give it time. With the knowledge that I have now, that's bullshit. I know that if you are abused, the first step to heal from trauma and abuse is to stop the ongoing abuse. It's like when you dig yourself into a hole, the first thing you need to do to get out of the hole is to stop digging deeper, because if you're sinking, you can't climb up, right? And eventually what happened was that I started to think that I should commit suicide. And my father always wanted to jump off a building, but I didn't want to be like him, so I was thinking I'm going to jump off a bridge, more dramatic and more effective. They're not going to find you if there is water down and you jump and drown. But the problem is I was Googling and there was no bridge tall enough in my area. And when you're suicidal, your biggest concern is that what if you fail and you end up in a wheelchair and you're with your mother until the end of your life? No one saw it, no one cared. It's honestly a miracle I'm here with you to make this video. What happened was, ironically, the blue pill got me out of the matrix and not the red pill. There was one day when I was at home eating cereal and I found the blue pill floating inside my cereal. A pill that I had never seen that before. I was not taking blue pills, my pills were all white, and even if I was taking it, it was not supposed to be inside my food. So I go to my mother and I confront her because she was the one who poured the milk in the cereal, and I said, what is that? And she said, there is nothing there, you're hallucinating. I was right, the schizophrenia has begun. Luckily for me, my father and my grandmother happened to be in the house at the same time. So I go to my father and I show him and I say, do you see anything inside the cereal? And he becomes first white, seriously, his face changed color. Then he becomes red and then he starts screaming. I'm going to spare you the violent things that happened, the physical abuse, the screams, the items breaking. The good thing was that he kicked my mother out of the house and he told her that he's going to call the police because she's trying to harm me. And I was thinking, oh my God, with my brain working in slow motion, I was thinking, oh my God, at least we got rid of her. Like, I can take a break now. I can sleep, I can eat, I can shower, you know, these things that they are on scarcity. What happened was my father takes me to a different psychiatrist with the pills. The psychiatrist tells him that over-medicating and trying to make your kid overdose with several various unknown pills is a crime that he would normally call CPS, but I don't know how my father tried to talk him out of calling CPS. But the doctor said pretty much, it was a good doctor, actually, the first good we saw. He was an old guy, but he knew what was going on. He said, I don't know what your daughter took, what is taking. You stop all the pills at once and you have to undergo rehab because we don't know what's going on and I can't risk giving her any other medication that could overdose her because maybe there are drugs in his system still. I'm going to spare you the detox from all of these horrible pills. There were 2 weeks that I was thinking I should have jumped off that bridge every moment. The withdrawal was that bad and they wouldn't even give me painkillers for the withdrawal symptoms, the pain and the headaches and all of that. But after the 2 weeks I started feeling better. My father was the kind of person that he didn't know how to do a lot of cooking and stuff at the time. He would mostly buy takeout food, but it was okay. I started to study. I was thinking I want to take the college exam. And then my mother pulls out the fake suicide attempt. And by saying fake, it's because she literally drank a beer and she took 2 Xanax and then she called the ambulance on herself. And you would say, Persephone, how do you know it was fake? Well, that was usually her breakfast. And that would be followed by several beers and several Xanax, so I knew from first-hand observation that they can't die from just one beer and two Xanax. But in the hospital, they wouldn't risk, so they pumped her stomach anyway, and then she called my father crying and saying that she's so sorry, and she only did it for my own good, to help me be a top student. Of course, how you're going to be a top student after you die from an overdose from several pills, that's another question that I'm not going to answer. You can answer it yourselves. And then my father, because he's a good Christian, he decided that we should forgive her and we should take her back. When I asked him, what is the proof that first of all she's sorry, second she's not going to do it again or do something else, or like I'm just recovering, why do I have to deal with her? He told me that Christianity said you should honor your parents, you should forgive other people, you are not perfect yourself, and I'm going to tell you that was one of the main reasons that I left Christianity, and I'm very good with that decision. I'm never going to go back to Christianity. Because I believe, I don't say this to anyone who is a Christian to convert them, and you are free to disagree. I believe that Christianity and what the Bible says works very well if you have kind, normal parents, that you should honor them, that you shouldn't abuse them, and you should repay them for raising you. If you have a murderer in your house and you forgive them too many times, you're just going to end up dead. And I don't know what the Bible says about that. I've read the Bible a lot more than the average Christian. It doesn't have anything about these cases. I don't know why, but I think that allowing someone to just kill me is a different kind of sin. I think that if you have a life and God gave you life, you should live it. So she comes back home, and all of a sudden I have to prepare pasta and jelly for her, because after all she had her stomach pumped, and here I am, the victim, taking care of the murderer. And at that point I'm thinking that I'm done. So I was doing research, and there was no one in real life to help me. If I'm alive right now, and I have to thank some people, I'm going to thank anonymous people on the internet, because they were the ones sharing resources about narcissism. They were the ones sharing their own experiences. And the first book that I had read on the subject, although I was very young, I was a minor, was You're Not Crazy, It's Your Mother. And after I read this book, my mother had every symptom in the book about narcissistic mothers. And I made up my mind that I don't know what's going on with my family, but I have to get away, because every time I tried to talk to an online forum, I had to fake my age and pretend I am older than I am in many forums, because they wouldn't accept a minor, they wouldn't give advice, and I would alter information. So everyone said no contact, move away. So I was thinking, okay, I have to find a way to do that. And looking back now, and this is very interesting because many people from my family admitted it, and I hated them for a long time, they knew she's a monster, and they were extremely afraid, because when someone is a narcissist, they need a target for their rage, for their narcissistic supply, for all that. So if I left, after I was 7 and she took me, she stopped harassing and attacking them as much. So they needed a scapegoat. And they knew what was happening to me, and they decided that I'm just collateral damage, that their lives are just more important. So, I mean, I understand that the average person cannot deal with a narcissist. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would say, I hope these people get cancer and die, I wish them cancer every day. Now I don't anymore. Now I'm going to say that they were just weaklings. Weaklings that she bullied throughout their lives, like cousins, aunts, her sister, other relatives, and I can't expect everyone to have the courage to fight a narcissist. So I said, I'm leaving. Whatever college accepts me, even if I hate it, I'm going, whatever town it is. And I told myself, I'm going to be a human and live as other human beings, no matter what it takes. Because up to that point, I didn't have human rights. Denying the right to shower, denying the right to eat, denying the right to sleep, she would keep me sleep deprived. Aren't those things extremely abusive? Rhetorical question. So I got an early acceptance to a college at 17. I went to that college, and again, I'm going to spare you some years. I don't know if I'm going to make analytical videos about what happened. She tried everything she could to get me to drop out, everything she could to make my life miserable. She would show up unannounced, and when all of that stuff didn't work, she tried the biggest financial abuse war I had ever until that point. I have to say that in college there were times that I felt like a human for the first time, and I made friends who weren't from such monstrous families. And one of my friends was my first husband, who was a Russian guy, and he would laugh that I would be this kind of person that came from, I don't know, an authoritarian country or from jail or from an institution, that we would go out and I would be amazed that, oh my God, we can just open the door at night and go out. We can just go to eat at the restaurant and there's no one going to yell at us. He said that I'm the type of person that enjoys the little things in life, but the little things, when for 10 years you're a prisoner, they become big things. Eventually, as with most things, the good times ended because he came up with plans to cut out all of my funds, and I had part-time jobs. I was always working to make my own money, but these jobs weren't enough to sustain myself, and she would always try drama and weaponize money. So I was thinking, I have to graduate as fast as possible. I have to forget everything else, and then I have to get any job. If a job pays well, so I can get rid of her, I'm going to do it. And at that point, I had also entered the rage stage because I was able to compare myself to other people for the first time, and I would think, I don't harm anyone. Like, why is wanting to get a boyfriend and have friends and work out and eat healthy, why is it a crime? Why is this person harassing me and stalking me and abusing me and turning people against me? I read yesterday something profound. There was a woman who was a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and she said, narcissistic mothers are not mothers, they're just women who happen to have children. That was my mother. Like, she has nothing motherly about it, about herself, and I would say she has no humanity. She's not human. For her, you should be up 24/7 to serve her. You should be who she wants you to be, and any disagreement is in fact an insult. At that point, I had started to see therapists and psychiatrists by myself, paying them with my own money without my father knowing, and they validated me, and I started to become extremely angry. I'm going to tell you, angry like punching a wall and almost breaking my knuckles and making holes in the walls. There was a time where my house, it had holes everywhere from my anger, that I would say that really, you're going to cuck me, you're going to tell me how I'm going to live my life for as long as one of us is alive. Like, I remember screaming at my father and saying, it ends when she or me dies. And that's not my choice, that's hers. But of course, you can't reason with stupid people, you can't reason with narcissists. So I said, okay, you want it? Fine. You're going to see who's the freak. And after, like I said earlier, 24 jobs, I managed to land a job in a field that was extremely well paying. It was a very good job. And at that point, I was looking like I am a well-adjusted adult. I had finished college. I was getting married to my first husband. I had a job. Things were looking well. People were actually admiring me because I was already writing and sharing and telling things about narcissism. And people were saying that we look up to you. And then it all came crashing down. Which brings us to part 2 that I'm going to upload after this video.